Okay, here's the third installment of the introduction lecture series for sociology. We're talking about the sociological imagination and being able to sort of peel back the layers to understand what it is that reality TV or music or a sporting event or anything reflects in terms of what we value. Now, again, being in the right place at the right time is important. I'm kind of being funny with this a little bit, but I am a psychologist and a teacher. Let's just say hypothetically I am successful in society today. Well, I don't know if that's true or not, but I make enough money to get by, and my wife is a teacher. So with our skill sets, we do okay. We make it. Now, if I had been born thousands of years ago, let's say in a very primitive hunting and gathering society, where the men were basically hunting and the women were gathering berries and caring for children. Let's say that I am transported back in time with my skill set and my abilities, and I am now standing before a society of 50 people, not millions, but maybe 50 people, and they're asking me, okay, Brandon, Dean, what can you do to help our society? I kind of scratch my head a little bit, and I say, well, I can't really hunt, but I can teach psychology and sociology classes. Probably they're going to look at me and think, yeah, we're going to eat you because you're not going to be very useful. I'm going to end up in the hot pot there because there's no need for psychology and sociology teachers thousands of years ago. So again, being in the right place at the right time. We could go back almost a couple of decades. I grew up a big baseball fan, watching players like Mark McGwire and Barry Bonds. They were racing at the time to accumulate home run records, but they were also playing within what's called the steroids era of baseball. So are their accomplishments really great? A lot of people say, yeah, I mean, you can't hit that many home runs and be that great without being a great player. Others will say, well, no, they were just in the right place at the right time because they were playing during an era where steroids were encouraged. So had they not been on drugs, they would not have been as good of players. So, again, we could go back and forth with that. Shaun White, maybe you've heard of Shaun White, Tony Hawk. Their abilities, their skill sets are very specific. Shaun White is an Olympic snowboarder. Tony Hawk is a skateboarder. They're both millionaires several times over. Now, had they been born 100 years ago, 500 years ago, or in a different country, would they be famous? Would they be popular? Probably not, because the time would not have been right for them to exhibit their skill set. I talk about some shows from my generation, from the 70s, Three's Company, The Dukes of Hazzard, and some of the students that I talk to, but when I show them clips from these shows, they're like, why would you watch this? It's ridiculous. Then, of course, we move into the 90s. Two of my very favorite shows from the 90s, Beavis and Butthead and Saved by the Bell. I think you can find these in reruns. So a lot of your interests, things that you like, your preferences, have a lot to do with your age, when you were born. Of course, there are a million different reality TV shows. I've put some of them up here. Dancing with the Stars, The Biggest Loser, America's Next Top Model, Extreme Makeover. Everything is a reality show. We could go on and on and on. The Bachelor, The Bachelorette, The Braxton Sisters, or whatever that show's called. These shows are everywhere. Survivor, I still believe, is on. One of the first reality shows. And of course, Duck Dynasty has been one of the biggest and most recent reality show hits. So again, maybe these guys were just in the right place at the right time. They seem like regular people to me, like people I grew up with, quite frankly. But, you know, there's a lot to be said for being in the right place at the right time. I'm going to transition. We're still... This is still the third installment of the PowerPoint lecture. I'm just getting this ready. So just continue with your note-taking here. And we're moving into Part B. Now, next thing that I want to talk about, and these are important as well, troubles versus issues. The difference between the two. Let's start with troubles. Troubles, and you'll want to have these in your notes. Troubles occur within the character of the individual, within the range of his or her immediate relations to others. They have to do with the person as an individual in the limited areas of social life with which he or she is personally aware. Troubles deal more with the individual. That's the shorthand there. Troubles are more appropriate for psychology, which studies the individual. And we all have troubles. We all have troubles that we deal with, whether they're mental illnesses, substance abuse, work-related stress, school-related stress, relationship issues, whatever. We all have those. Issues, however, and this is more sociological, issues transcend the individual. They have to do with matters that transcend or rise above local environments of the person in his or her inner life. They deal more with society. And that's where sociology is. So we're going to deal more with issues in a sociology class. Let me give you a few examples to sort of differentiate because it's important. Let's just say hypothetically, in a city of 10,000 people, if only one person is unemployed, this represents more of a personal trouble and not a larger social or societal issue. However, if you go to places like Detroit, Michigan, where the unemployment rate is like somewhere near 30%, which is really high. Let's say in a city of 10,000 people, if half of those people are unemployed, are we going to look at these as individual troubles? Or is it more appropriate to look at this as a societal issue? And my answer would be probably and definitely. This is a larger societal issue. This is something more appropriate for sociology. Maybe it's economic. Maybe there are political issues. Maybe the infrastructure of the city has been decaying and people are leaving. Maybe the crime rate is so high that it's running people off and it's running businesses off. So this is where we would look at issues, and this is more appropriate for sociology. I'll give you another example. In warfare, how to survive or die with honor represents a personal trouble, not a larger issue. However, if we want to look at how warfare impacts a society's social structure, economic structure, and political institutions, this would represent larger social issues, and these would be more appropriate areas of study in sociology. Certainly, if a country goes to war, it's going to affect everybody's pocketbooks, right? Because war is expensive. Our taxes go up, the government needs money to fund troops, etc. So that's going to impact all of us. If there's warfare in the Middle East, which affects oil, is that going to affect how much you pay for gas to put in your car? Yes, it will. So these are larger issues that would be appropriate for sociology. And one more. Let's look at the idea of fidelity. Let's look at marriage. Within a single marriage, there are always problems. If you're in a relationship, you could probably think of some bumps in the road that you've had with your significant other. That's normal. Those are troubles. However, if you look at a divorce rate, and I think nationwide it's almost 60%, and you can decide whether that's good, bad, or indifferent. Let's say in a given community the divorce rate is 75%. Could this represent a larger issue? Perhaps. Some people say that the divorce rate being so high in this country is a major social issue because it creates problems, or it's indicative of underlying problems within our society. Others argue the opposite of that. You can decide. So, where exactly does sociology fit? Let's talk a little bit about that. You have the natural and the social sciences. Let's distinguish. The natural sciences are intellectual and academic endeavors designed to comprehend, explain, and predict things that happen in the natural environment, in the natural world. So natural sciences, you've probably taken these as classes: biology, geology, chemistry, physics. These are natural sciences, and sociology does not fit there. However, sociology is a social science. Same definition, but one key difference. These are intellectual and academic endeavors designed to understand, comprehend, and predict things that happen in the social environment, not the natural environment. Again, classes that maybe you've taken, political science, so you see politics there, economics, history, anthropology, psychology. These are all sciences that deal not with natural things, but with people and with social institutions. And this is where sociology fits. It is a social science. A sociologist, James Henslin, points out that sociology is similar to and different from the other social sciences. Social sciences examine human relationships. Some examples of social sciences include, you'll want to get these down, history, which is the scientific study of previous events. So why study the history of anything? You've had history classes. A lot of students are, they're kind of like, oh gosh, history. You got to take history. Well, Here's why it's important to study the history of anything. We're not going to turn this into a history course, but I want to underscore the importance of understanding some things historically and the importance of history. First of all, we learn, and you want to write these down, these are not in your book. We learn from what others have done. Second, we hopefully learn from the mistakes of history. History is not always static, it changes. For a long time, everything about the world was assumed to be true based on this geocentric view of the universe. In other words, the idea that the Earth was at the center of the universe. Sooner or later, we find out that it's really not the Earth, but the Sun that's at the center of the universe. So that changes the way we have viewed history. So history can change. History also helps us to understand the present as well as helps us to predict the future. Political science, the scientific study of politics and government, how governments are formed, how they operate, and how they relate to other institutions of society. Political scientists are interested in how people attain ruling positions, how they maintain that power, and ruling over others. What are the consequences for the actions of others who rule over others? Economics, the scientific study of the production and distribution of material goods and services of society. What goods are being produced? How much do they cost? How are they produced? Who can afford them? Who cannot afford them? And we value goods and services in our country because they ensure our survival, they make life easier, and they also make life way more interesting. Anthropology is the scientific study of culture. We'll study culture a lot and more in Chapter 2 as well. Anthropologists are ones who study culture, artifacts, structure, ideas and values, forms of communication. Culture is a huge part of this class. Culture, if you want a definition, is a complete and total way of life for a group of people, to include language, beliefs, values, norms, behaviors, material objects as well, that are passed down from one generation to the next. So you want to get that in your notes. I'm going to go ahead and call that the end of this part of this PowerPoint lecture. Thank you.